So welcome guys to Microeconomics. We're going to be covering our chapter supply and demand. So what we're going to be talking about today is supply and demand, the demand curve, the supply curve, market surplus, market shortage, and then elasticity. If you guys want to follow to specific sections and skip to it, you can just go to the description and just go to the timestamps, and then it'll take you to where you need to go. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so starting off with what is supply and demand. So what is it? It's a combination of the supply curve and the demand curve. So the goal of this chapter is to use supply and demand to determine price and quantity of goods and services. So supply, this is the amount of a good that is available or supplied to consumers. Demand is the amount of a good that is requested or demanded by consumers. So market equilibrium, this is when quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded, when supply curve meets the demand curve. So now here showing you guys the demand curve equation and the supply curve equation. These are going to be extremely important when we actually dive into questions because we'll be using numbers. All right, so now to visually show you guys what we just learned. So our supply and demand should look something like this. You have your price on your y-axis and your quantity on your x-axis. And then I'm just going to draw a generic line for the demand curve. So it'll be like this. This is our demand. And I'll put in orange the supply curve. And so this would be our supply. And you can see where they meet in the middle. This point right here, this is what we call the equilibrium point. All right, and like we said before, the goal of supply and demand is to find the price and quantity related to specific points. So let's say the equilibrium point, there will be a specific price of it. We'll call this PE. And there'll also be a specific quantity to this equilibrium point. So this would be QE. And so this is just a basic overview of supply and demand. Now I'll talk more in depth about the demand curve. And then after that, I'll talk more in depth about the supply curve. And everything is going to connect back to each other and make more sense. All right, so what is the demand curve? So what is it? It's a graphical representation of demand when taking price and quantity into account. The demand curve, this is the total line. And then the quantity of demand is a point on the demand curve with an amount of units. So make sure you guys know the difference between the demand curve and quantity of demand. So quantity, this just means the amount of people willing to buy. And then we represent quantity on the x-axis like I showed in the previous visualization. And then price is the amount of money to purchase a good. This is on the y-axis. So every point on the demand curve has a price and quantity associated with it. So the demand curve equation, I just put it up again in case you guys needed to see it. So what is the law of demand? So the law of demand states that all else being equal, when price of a good decreases, quantity demanded increases and vice versa. So here to show it is, so if price increases, quantity of demand decreases, and if prices decrease, quantity of demand increases. This makes more sense. If things are more expensive, less people will want to buy it. If things are less expensive, more people will want to buy it. That's pretty much the law of demand. So how does the demand curve work? How it works is the demand curve slopes downwards. So moving down the curve, you have prices decrease, quantity demanded increases. And then moving up the curve, prices increases, the quantity demanded decreases. All right, guys, so now that I just explained the demand curve, let's visualize it. So let's first start by drawing it out. So we'll do our y-axis and our x-axis. So if you remember, quantity will be on our x-axis. We do this with a Q. And then our y-axis is P for price, and this is in dollar sign. So now I'm going to draw the demand curve. I'm going to put it in blue. Demand curve, as you remember, is always sloping downwards. So you can see this slopes downwards. And so like we said, the entire line is what we call the demand curve. And then the difference is a point on the line is what we call the quantity of demand. So if we go down here, this is our quantity of demand. This will have a number. And so every quantity of demand has an associated price. So if we go to the left, this will have a price. So we'll put P1. All right, so now explaining the law of demand. So if price increases, the quantity of demand decreases. So let's visualize that. So let's say we take a point above, so price increases. So let's go over here. And like we said, price increases. This is going up. So let's say here is $5 and now here is 6. Our quantity of demand, if we go down, will decrease. So let's say here was 10. Now our quantity of demand will only be 8. So if we do the opposite, if prices decrease, quantity of demand increases. So if we take a price down here, prices decrease. We'll draw this up. So P3, and let's say this is $4. Our quantity of demand, we'll say, is 12. So it increases. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about the demand curve. It's just a basic overview. All right, guys, so for another example, let's pretend we're a student club event. So the step one, let's gather price and quantity. So we have different sorts of ticket prices that we want to sell. So we have $2, $5, and $10. And then we have the expected quantity that we expect to sell according to the ticket price. So if we set the ticket price at $2, we can expect to sell 60 tickets. If we put the ticket price at $5, we can expect to sell 40. $10 would be 20. So what we can do with this is go to step 2, which is to plot these points, which creates our demand curve. So you can see here on the bottom, we have our tickets sold, which would be our quantity. And then on the left is our ticket price in dollars. And then in orange is our prices, is our points where ticket price and quantity meet. So what we could do with this is now step 3, understand your goal. So if we want to maximize revenue, we should sell tickets for $10 or $5. If we want to maximize attendance, we should sell tickets for $2. And then we can adjust on demand. So we could offer early bird tickets at a lower price to fill the event quickly, then raise prices as the event fills up. So this is just a simple example of how we could use demand curve in any day life, such as a student club event. So how does the demand curve shift? So determining factors, these are factors that cause the demand curve to shift. So if demand curve shifts to the right, there's an increase in demand. If the demand curve shifts to the left, there's a decrease in demand. So determining factors, first we have income. If income increases, demand increases. If people have more money, they will spend more money. If income decreases, then demand decreases. If people have less money, they will spend less. So 2, substitute goods. These are goods that can replace another. So if the price of a substitute increases, then the demand of your initial product increases. If the price of your substitute decreases, then the demand of your initial item decreases. So complements, this is goods consumed together. So if complements, the price of complements increase, then the demand decreases. And if the price of complements decrease, then the demand increases. So an example of this is if we're buying hot dogs and our hot dog buns increase, then the demand for hot dogs will decrease because the buns are too expensive and we buy those things together. But on the contrary, let's say if our buns decrease, then the demand for hot dogs will increase because we can buy those two things cheaper. All right, so let's look at an example. So let's look at laptop demand with student income increase. So step 1, let's gather our price and quantity. So here we have the laptops before income increase. So we can see here on the right side, the laptop price. So for $800, we can expect to sell 100 units. For $1,000 of a laptop, we can expect to sell 80 units and then so on. And then here we have the laptops after an income increase. So on the right side, we have the same prices. So laptop price of $800, but now our expected units have gone up. So instead of $100, we can expect to sell 150 for the same laptop price. So for $1,000, we can expect to sell 120 units compared to 80 before. So this brings us to step 2, which is to plot both demand curves. So you can see on the curve, the darker orange is our demand curve for laptops before the income increase. And then the lighter orange is the demand curve for laptops after the income increase. And this you could visualize and visually see the shift in the demand curve. And this is just a good and simple example of how the demand curve can shift with income. So now moving on to the supply curve. So what is the supply curve? What is it? It's a graphical representation of supply when taking price and quantity into account. The supply curve is the total line. The quantity of supply is a point on the supply curve. This is the amount producers are willing to sell. So quantity is on the x-axis, like always. Price, this is the amount of money consumers pay for a product. This is noted on the y-axis. So this is the supply curve function. So what is the law of supply? The law of supply states that all else being equal, when price of a good increases, producers are willing to supply more of it because higher prices tend to lead to higher profits. So if prices increases, quantity of supply increases. If prices decrease, then the quantity of supply decreases. So how does the supply curve work? How it works is, well, the supply curve works and slopes upwards. So moving down the curve, this is where prices decrease and the quantity of supply decreases. Moving up the curve, the higher up you go, prices will increase and the quantity of supply increases. All right, so now to visually show you guys what we just learned. So the supply curve. So now I'll just draw a simple example of the supply curve like this. And so this is our supply curve with the equation of QS is equal to A plus BP. All right, so all of this is the supply curve, and then a point on it would be our quantity of supply. So it would be our QS. So now for the law of supply. So this states that if prices increases, so let's say here we have a price set to, let's say $5. And then our quantity supply will be 100. And let's say our prices increases. So we're going to go up. So let's take over here. And let's say our price is going to be 10. So let's get this line. And let's find where it meets it. So this point right here. And then we'll go down. And so as we could see, our quantity supply will be more than 100. So let's say this will be 200. So you could see when our prices increase, our quantity supply will increase. Let me just delete these. And so we could do the opposite. So if prices decrease, then the quantity of supply decreases. So let's take a point right here. Say price will be $1 right there. The point here, and then draw it back down. We'll find our quantity of supply. And let's say this one is only 20. So you could see when we go down, when our prices go downwards, our quantity goes down. And this is pretty much the law of supply. And so you could see also that the supply curve slopes upwards. So compared to the demand curve, if we were to draw that real quick, it would be sloping downwards. So the supply curve slopes upwards. And so that's pretty much all you need to know about the basics of the supply curve. All right, so how does the supply curve shift? So determining factors, these are the factors that cause the supply curve to shift. So if the supply curve shifts to the right, there's an increase in supply. If the supply curve shifts to the left, there's a decrease in supply. So determining factors, one would be production costs. So if production costs increases, then supply decreases. If production cost decreases, then supply increases. So that's pretty much it for the supply curve shift. All right, so now going on to the market mechanism. So first starting off with market surplus. So what is market surplus? Well, its definition. So when quantity of supply is greater than the quantity of demand. So when QS is greater than QD. So if price is greater than the equilibrium point, this means there is a market surplus. So why is market surplus bad? So one, having more supply of a good than demand could result in a wasted resources and unused goods for a company. Overproducing products that is not demanded can result in economic loss. So how do we fix market surplus? So to fix this, we have to decrease the price to its equilibrium price point where quantity of supply will equal quantity of demand. All right, guys, so now I'm going to show you what the market surplus should look like. So I'm going to start off by drawing our graph here. So starting with price and then quantity. And then let's draw our supply and demand curve. So we have our demand curve. And then we'll put in orange our supply curve. All right, and then we'll have our price of equilibrium. I'll put it as PE. And that should be right in the middle here. All right, so let me move that. So our PE is here, and then our quantity of equilibrium would be right here, QE. And so as we said before, if our price is above our price of equilibrium, then we would have a market surplus. So for example, if we have our P1, let's say right here, I'm going to draw the line. So we'll have a market surplus between right here. So our quantity of demand is right here. And our quantity of supply is right here. And just to make this more clear, this is demand, and this is our supply right here. So you can see here, this is our quantity of supply 1 and then our quantity of demand 1. And you could see here, so using these two examples, that quantity supply is greater than our quantity of demand. So this means we have a market surplus. And so where is our market surplus? So it would actually just be the line right here. So it's not the area. So don't think that this is the area. This is not the market surplus. The market surplus is just this line right here. If you guys could see the highlighter, that line, it's the price of the line. So this would be our market surplus. All right, so if you guys want to see some more, it could be at any point. So if I take another point up here, let's say P2, I draw the line with a point there, the point there, go all the way down. So this, let me erase everything else. So we have our quantity of supply 2 and our quantity of demand 2. And as we can see here, quantity of supply is still greater than quantity of demand. So this equals to our market surplus. All right, and so how do we fix market surplus? Well, the only way we could do it is by decreasing our price. So if our P2 goes to P1, we're reducing our market surplus. And then if our P1 goes to PE, so that means our P1 turns into the price of equilibrium, then we will get rid of market surplus. All right, so now what is market shortage? So the definition, so when the quantity of demand is greater than the quantity of supply, so if price is less than the equilibrium point, this means there is a market shortage. So why is market shortage bad? So one, market shortage suggests that consumer demand is not being met, leading to missed opportunities by the company. Two, consumers have a difficulty obtaining the product. And then three, market shortage suggests that resources are being underutilized. So how do we fix market shortage? We have to increase the price to its equilibrium price point where quantity of supply will equal quantity of demand. So let's go into an example. All right, to visualize market shortage is very simple since it's the exact opposite of the market surplus. So let's first do our graph again. Q on the bottom, and then price on the top. Let's get our demand curve. And then let's get our supply curve. All right, I'll plot down the equilibrium point. So this will be right when they meet in the middle. So PE, and then here would be QE. All right, so like we said, if market surplus is above, then market shortage is going to be when price is below the price of equilibrium. So anywhere below this point right here will be our market shortage. All right, so for an example, if I pick anywhere like here, let's call it P1. I'll draw this line out. We could see 2 points, so one right here and one right here. So this would be our quantity of supply on, because it's on the supply curve, and here will be our quantity of demand on the demand curve. So if we look at it, we can see that quantity of demand is greater than our quantity of supply, which tells us that this is a market shortage. All right, and just like market surplus, the line is our market shortage. It's not the area, so don't think this area is the market shortage. It's really just this line right here. All right, so let me get the points back. And so just another example to show you guys that any point could be the market shortage. So if I put P2 here, I draw the line, draw the point. So here would be our QS2, and then here would be our QD2. Now it's a little crowded, so let me erase these things. And we can see again that QD, our quantity of demand, is greater than our quantity of supply, which tells us we have a market shortage. And our market shortage is going to be, I'll put it in a highlighter, this line. Okay? And so to fix market shortage, what we have to do is we want to get back to price equilibrium. So we need to increase our prices. So let's say if we increase it just by a little bit, this will give us our P1 or get us close to P1. And then we want to get closer to price equilibrium, so we increase it again. And that's how we get to our price equilibrium. That's how we get rid and fix market shortage. All right, so starting with an overview of elasticity. So starting off with, what is elasticity? So the definition, it's a measure of the changing quantity due to price changes. So there are two types of elasticity. We have elastic and inelastic. So let's start with what is elastic. So its definition is that quantity will highly change due to price changes. Examples of this include restaurants, airlines, clothing, electronics, entertainment, and luxury cars. If prices go up, then the quantity of these examples will go down. If prices go down, then the quantity of these things will go up. More people will want to go to restaurants, more people want to go to airlines, and more people will buy clothes if the prices are lower. So the curve, so the flatter the curve becomes, the more elastic it gets. So visually you could see if it's more flatter than usual, or if it's flatter compared to the others, then it is more elastic. So let's look at what is inelasticity. So its definition, its quantity will barely change due to price changes. It's the exact opposite of elastic. So examples of this is medication, gasoline, electricity, water, heating. These are things where if the prices increase, the quantity will pretty much stay the same. Let's say for medication, if your prices go up, you're still going to need that medication, so the quantity wouldn't change. Same as electricity, same as water and heating and gasoline. These are all essential things that we need to live through. So the curve, the more vertical a curve becomes, the more inelastic it gets. Right, so now I'm going to show you the difference between a completely inelastic demand and a completely elastic demand. So starting off with a completely inelastic demand, we could see here is this is what it would look like. This would be our demand. And as you could see, let's say if we have a price here, we have a price here, for a price here, if our prices increase, our demand stays the same. So this does not move. So this could be anywhere from, like, I guess a good example would be medicine, where even if they increase the price, you're gonna still need the medicine and the demand is not gonna change for it. Although it might not be completely inelastic, it's a pretty good example of this. So here, now for completely elastic, we could just draw something like this. And so price would just be like this. So depending on the price, the quantity could change drastically. So it could be here, it could be here, here, and it really just depends. So complete elastic, it just means that the quantity of demand can change drastically. It can go from here, or it can go from here to your price. All right, so now going on to elasticity of demand. So starting off with what is price elasticity of demand, or we can write this as EDP. So its definition, it is the percentage change in quantity of demand in response to a 1% change in its price. All other factors are kept as constant. So there are two types of elasticity. We have elastic demand and inelastic demand is what we explained before. So price elasticity of demand formula, this is going to be used when we're doing problems. So your EDP is equal to the percent change in quantity of demand divided by your percent change in price. Or we can just break this out into price divided by your quantity of demand times your change in quantity of demand divided by your change in price. So I have everything on the bottom underneath the formula of everything you need to know. And then after that, we have the percentage change in quantity and the percentage change in price. This is going to be important if they ever ask you about that. So what is elastic demand? Definitions, the quantity of demand is highly responsive to price changes. We also explained this before. So we can know if it's an elastic demand if the absolute value of our EDP, once we calculate that, is greater than 1. So examples of this are air travel, restaurants, cars, electronics, etc. This is also what we talked about before. What is inelastic demand? Again, the definitions, the quantity of demand does not change to price changes. We can calculate this by getting the absolute value of our EDP. And if it's less than 1, it will be inelastic. So examples of this would be basic groceries, medication, utility services, and gasoline. All right, so now looking at other demand elasticities. So we have income elasticity of demand. Its definition is how the quantity demanded changes in response to change in consumer income. So income elasticity of demand formula, we have EDI is equal to income divided by your quantity of demand times the change in quantity of demand divided by your change in income. So if your EDI is positive, then demand increases as income increases. If your EDI is greater than 1, the demand increases more than proportionally to income increases, meaning vacations or luxury cars. And then if your EDI is greater than 0 but less than 1, that means your demand increases proportionally less than income increases. So this could be like buying food, for example. So if EDI is negative, the demand decreases as income increases. This could mean that you're buying secondhand or basic staples. So cross price elasticity of demand. The definition is how the quantity of demand changes to a change in the price of another good. So we have our substitute goods. This is products that can be replaced for the other. So we have public transportation versus personal transportation like cars. Complementary goods are products that are used together. So we have hot dogs and then hot dog buns. So cross price elasticity of demand formula, it's EQ of A with PB. So our PB is the price of product B divided by our QA, which is our quantity of product A, times the change in quantity of product A divided by the change in price of product B. So if EQ of A PB is less than 0, this means we have a complementary good. If it's greater than 0, that means we have a substitute good. Right, so now going on to the elasticity of supply. So what is price elasticity of supply, or ESP? The definition is the responsiveness of the quantity supplied of a good to a change in its price. So now we're looking at the supply curve. So the price elasticity of supply formula is ESP is equal to your price change in QS, your quantity supplied, divided by your percentage change in P, which is price. This can be broken down into your price divided by your quantity supplied times your change in quantity supplied divided by your change in price. We have everything that we need to know underneath that formula. And then we're also given the percentage change in quantity and the percentage change in price if it ever asks you in a question. So what is elastic supply? It's the quantity of supply is highly responsive to price changes. So your ESP will be greater than 1 once you calculate it. And an example of this is clothing, electronics, agriculture, digital products. The supply of it, the supply of clothes, is highly responsive to price changes. What is inelastic supply? What the quantity of supply does not change to price changes, your ESP will be less than 1. So example of this is prime real estate, famous arts, minerals. Even if the price goes up, the quantity of supply will not change. If the price goes down, the quantity of supply will barely change as well. So these are all the formulas for this chapter. If you guys have any questions, just leave a comment below. And if you guys want to see more of microeconomics, just go to my playlists and then just find microeconomics, and then there will be all the questions and the chapters that I'm doing. So see you guys soon. Thank you.